Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Hi VibeNet. We are so happy to be with you here for another amazing episode. If you don't know who we are, I'm Kelsey Aida, one of your co-hosts. I'm also here with my bestie, Lindsay Robinson. We both help people to live their best lives and raise their vibration and feel better and release resistance and manifest all the things. And today we have an amazing, awesome guest. Miss Maia is here to help us talk about some cool witchery and awesomeness and moving energy and living in harmony with nature and all kinds of fun things. She is an author and a teacher of mystical awesomeness. That's what I wrote here as her official title in my notes. So I'm really excited for you guys to get to know her, to want to buy all of her oracle decks. And today
and
we are
books.
just going to, pick her wisdom and absorb her amazing, mystical, magical energy. So Maia, thanks for being here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. This is fabulous. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We love chatting about good old witchery and practical intention setting and daily magic and rituals and all the things. So we are here for it. Nothing you can say is too weird or out there.
Oh my gosh, I'm hoping it's weird. I need a really good weird episode.
Sometimes we get really normal, so maybe it's time to like weird it up, you know?
Heavy
go
quotes.
beyond, to go out there. The
Let's
people
woo
are
it up.
ready for it.
So before we hit record, I mean, I had to stop you because you were about to say what you were saying was so profound and so great and just such a great beginning about how the word witch has become defined in terms of the more defined it gets, the more exclusive it gets, right? And so a lot of people feel kind of left on the sidelines. And the reason that I was like, okay, we need to hit record is because I am kind of like, I still feel weird saying that word. I do some weird witchy practices, but I still feel weird saying like, am I though? But can I say that? You know? So I really hope I would love if you went into depth a little bit on what that word means to you and how we can make it more inclusive, you know?
Yeah. And I think the question also is, do we want to make it more inclusive or do we want to say, we're done with that word and move on?
Yeah.
Because, what I'm looking for, what I'm always kind of seeking out is language that's about connection. And if witch has become a word with which we can no longer connect and that it's no longer about connection, it's about something else, then it's time to jettison it.
Yeah.
Right. So I started using the word witch, and I've been around people who have used the word witch for a long time, gray hair. But I never used it. I was like, ew, yuck.
Yeah.
What does that word mean? And when I started teaching online, I was searching for language for this place where we connect with something that's outside of ourselves. It's like this moment of transcendence where we transcend our own form and we have a sense of the bigger world. We have a sense of being on the web, the spider web, not the internet, but the internet really is the same thing, right?
Interwebs? Yeah.
The interwebs. And, from that place, you can feel into things. You can feel into futures. You can feel into past. You know what to do. It's a place of incredible empowerment, but it's not because you've done some ritual that you read in a book. It's because you slowed down and you connected with what's out there, right? You've connected with the world around you in a profound way that lets you understand patterns and vibrations. And so when I first started teaching online, I'm like, what's the word for that? What's the word for a person who can find patterns in moon phases and thinks it's worthwhile to talk to the jasmine plant? Like, what's the word for that? And the best word I could come up with was witch. And at the time, some people who were practicing Wiccans were really actively using the word. But what I've seen in the past 5 years is that the word witch is really on the rise, and that the more it rises, the more it gets defined. And the more it gets defined, the more people go, wait a second, I'm not that. That's not me. and they kind of go off sideways, right? So, like I look at what's going on Instagram and I go, yeah, that's not really me. And so I think it's interesting when you have someone who is identified as a witch by the outer world, who doesn't identify with the word. Like there's a disconnect going on there.
Mhm.
And if I'm feeling it, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
love that.
that's an interesting point. I like my relationship with the word witch is like in my adulthood when I started becoming more consciously spiritual and living more intentionally and becoming like really like this creatrix, manifester, alchemist person. A lot of people would like call me that. Like they would put that word on me, like, oh, you're such a witch. Everything you say comes true. You always know the future, or you're a healer, or you're this, or you're that. And I kind of liked it because there was, well, I'm an Aquarius. So I like to be like kind of eccentric and a little different and unique. So if people call me a witch, I'd be like, yeah, that's right. You better be afraid. Like I got the power. Like I thought it was kind of fun. But I really started embracing it when I read that book, and I forget the author, but it's called Witch, and it's all about the word, and it's black with the white letters. Do you know which one I'm talking about? And it's like Untamed Witch. It's called Untamed something something. Anyway, it was really cool, like reclaiming of the word for like spiritual women who are living in harmony with nature and working with energy and stuff like that. And I thought it was really cool. And now sometimes I don't know, I'm like, is everyone trying to be a witch? Do people not like that word? Like I'm trying to like feel it out. Like, does this feel empowering to me now or does it not? I'm not sure. And then sometimes I think like more fancy sounding words that sound less like evil of like olden times, right, might be better. Like, oh, I'm an alchemist, like I move energy, I change this into this, I transform things, or I'm a healer, I heal things in my life, or I harmonize or whatever. So that's kind of been like my journey with it. Or one of the guests that we're going to have on in a couple of weeks, she calls herself a creatrix. I'm like, ooh, that sounds cool, but also sounds like kind of dark, like, ooh, I don't know. So now I'm just like playing with all these different words, like, what do I want to identify as? Not that I usually say them out loud, but more like in my mind, like, what am I? What am I
what I am
here?
I already know, like, what? Yes, witch. I'm sure I know I've been a witch in a past life. I know I'm connected to that for sure. But I also feel my fantasy is having like a little herbalist station in my garden and like talking to my, I'm a druid, 100%. Like that's what I am. Okay. And when I played,
but you got to be careful with that word because it's associated. Wait, let me finish. It's become associated with.
He doesn't like that you're stifling my word.
He's actually barking because it's become associated with right-wing stuff. Like really in Europe.
No,
I know.
What?
Right?
Tell me how. I need to know.
Because there's a movement in countries that were like part of Celtic culture, and it's not everybody, nothing's everybody, but there's a movement to kind of reclaim Druidism as kind of a nationalistic heritage. And there's, then it starts to segue with the other nationalistic movements, and it can get into some murky stuff.
Well,
I mean, that's
thanks for coming on the show.
I know. Fuck you, right?
I'm so kidding. I love you. That's so annoying because there's this message to, and I 100% agree, decolonizing a lot of these spiritual practices, which, we see sage and we're just like, yeah, let me grab this sage, even though as a white woman, I have no geological heritageal connection to that. So I did some research. What did my people do? Okay, well, a lot of my people were Celts, were Druids, were all of these things. And so I was like, okay, great. That's what I'm gonna be, because now I can identify and I can feel like it's part of me, So what's your, how do I do that now?
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's where I'm at from myself. And the truth is I was even at this place when I started using the word witch. I've never called myself a witch. Other people call me a witch, right? So you guys are familiar with that. But I think that part of the problem is that we're looking for a label or a name at all. You know, like a druid was a religious position in a religion that mostly doesn't exist anymore. Right. And I think that like we have to be careful with the grabbing things from other cultures. And I think we also have to be careful with being too careful about any of it. Like words evolve, things evolve.
Yeah.
They come into a new place. You know, I've had people give me grief about using the word smudge. And I'm like, y'all, smudge is from the smudge pots, which were placed outside the factories in England and other places in Europe because the stench was so bad.
Yeah. They still smudge, they just smudge something else.
Right. They just smudge the scent of like boiled leather out of the air. So, you know, it gets tricky when language kind of gets reused, right? The word smudge it's not that any people native to the United States used the word smudge originally. They had, it's an English word. They had words in their own language. But then it gets used and associated with, and it all gets topsy-turvy, and then we don't know what to say. We're like, what language, you know, is respectful and points to the thing I'm actually doing, and right, so we get tongue-tied. And I think that happens with witch and druid and creatrix and like all these
the
words.
Things,
So some of it for me is I think that we've gotten to this place where we're really performative. You know, it's like, what can I do on social media that shows off who I am instead of just being who you are? And so when you're busy being who you are, I'm not sure that you need a word for it.
So you're just being, right? You're like,
you're just doing your shit.
I want to be a druid, guys. I really do. When the first ever D&D game I played with my dad and brothers, because they are those people.
Oh my God, I love you. I'm that person. Not anymore.
I grew up that way. And now my husband is that way. And he's like, we got to get the boy, because I have 3 boys. We got to get them in a game. I'm like, okay. But every time I'm a druid, every single time. They're just the coolest, especially in the D&D game. Like the fantastical version.
I was always an elf, so I don't know if
elves
stand behind the druids being the coolest.
Oh my gosh. Can I be an elf? I want to be an elf.
I think you're the right size character.
I think that for a couple years you could probably be an elf, and then it would get like glommed onto and everyone would define it and you'd have to be something else.
You know, I don't remember anyone ever calling me a druid or a witch, but you know what people call me all the time is a fairy. So can I claim fairy at least? Anyone?
Go for it.
Is that okay?
Put it on your business card.
It's going to be the fairy hypnotherapist. Hypnotheriist.
Wow. Love it.
Hypno fairy. Is that anything?
Hypno fairy is about to be something.
Anyway, this is such an important conversation. I'm really glad that we're touching on these topics because you're right. They are all, every word has potential to be, what's it called? Like flavor of the month. And once that happens, everybody gets in on it, and it can either, and sometimes both, make you feel left out, and also that it's so diluted now that you just want to move on to something else. So it's a really great, a really important subject to talk about. It's just happening so often with everything.
Well,
there's too many people.
There's too many people, too many of them. And I think that we're living in this very outward way.
Yes.
And we're talking about practices that are really inward. So I think that there's a conflict there, or maybe not conflict's the wrong word. I think there's a tension there to begin with, right? Like, so we're in this tension of trying to be outward facing because like, that's how we promote our businesses. That's how we sell books. That's how we do, all these things. And we want people to be able to find us and identify us and know that like they might vibe with us. And yet at the same time, each of these words just gets stickier and stickier as more people put their thoughts and feelings and photos. There's something about images. There's an old book called The Language versus the Goddess. And it's about how the world was more matriarchal before written language, which is kind of a fascinating concept that, like, once we switch to a more written language, something different happened in our brains from when we were more pictorial. And it's interesting because we're getting back to pictorial, right? Like Instagram and TikTok and all, they're totally pictorial. You're looking at images.
Yeah.
And so that's a big shift in how we think. And an image has a lot of impact. Like when I see these pictures with like drippy candles and black shadows, I'm like, okay, this is what I mean by witch. That is not.
Totally.
Something showed up on my Instagram that was said it was like an ad or something. It said, "Are you a green witch?" And I'm like, well, probably. And I just kept scrolling because like I just feel like there's so many different types also. Like you can't just be pigeonholed into one type of witch or practice one type of, I don't know, magic practice, whatever you want to call it. There's not just one type. And I think it gets confused a lot.
So did it keep tracking you, the ad? Are you a green
Oh,
witch?
probably.
And then you keep scrolling and it's like, are you growing meadowsweet and peppermint in your garden?
Yeah. Are
You're
you
like, leave me alone.
Are you ignoring this ad? Because we will come back.
Okay, but truly, like that's magic.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? I think that we sometimes get so lost in like the fairies and the elves and things like that, that we forget the influence over our subconscious.
Yeah.
That technology is having. And like, truly, that's magic. Magic is like taking the energies of the universe and tweaking them just a little bit so they go the direction you want them to go. And that's what those advertisers are doing.
Yes. That's
True
like
wizards.
this. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm teaching my kids. Like I had to learn this at like 19, 20, which is relatively early for most people. But I don't want my kids to have a day that goes by that they don't understand the power that they have of their own mind. Like I'm a hypnotherapist. Like I can't not teach this stuff. I can't not talk about it. So I tell them like, yes, there is magic. Of course there's magic in the world. It's you, bro. Like you're the magic. If you think about something and you're really happy about it, it might come true. And that's magic, teaching them that manifestation and law of attraction and all the things, like aligning with those energies of the universe early so that they don't have to look outside. And I can't tell the future. Maybe they'll do that anyway, but at least I'm doing what I can do. And it's true for myself too. I know Kelsey can agree probably, but we don't always look within ourselves for the answer. There are days that I'm like looking for everything else besides looking inward, and we're going to have those days, but I still always come home to the idea that like, well, it's in there. You just got to go get it. You got to go find it. It's just such an important thing to just have instilled within you as you go through life,
Yeah. And your kids are so lucky that you're getting that early. Cause, I went well into my 30s, kind of like looking around being like, are you my mother? Are you my mother?
Yeah.
Who's gonna tell me what to do?
What's the answer? Yeah.
Yeah. How do I do this life thing? Somebody point me in the right direction.
Yeah. And the other side of that, as you said, knowing that you have all the power and knowing that you do have such important influence in your life and what happens around you. Also, there are people that know this and are kind of maybe using it to manipulate, like you said, with just simple things, advertisements and the music they use in advertisements. We had a guest on the podcast who's teaching us about the hertz, the different hertz in music and how a lot of commercials and advertisements will use this one type of pattern or whatever of tone that is kind of a little bit hypnotic. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Of course they know. Of course, if they have this idea, they're going to use it against people that don't know, and even people that do know. I'm aware, but I don't know that it's still not affecting me,
Well, even when you're aware, like you're driving in the car, you're talking to your kids, you got 17 things going on and this commercial comes on and it becomes subliminal at that point.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's another kind of going backwards a little bit, even though the conversation has already progressed, but this came up for me as you guys were talking.
Let's go for it.
I feel like another complication with the whole wording and labels is that in olden days, like our genetics were more pure, and now like everybody is mixed. So like for me, I have like Mayan DNA, but I also
I'm sorry,
have like
if somebody took that out of
Scandinavian
context,
DNA.
if someone took that out of context, you'd be canceled tomorrow.
No,
but
I don't.
Everybody, if they listen to the whole thing,
percentage-wise,
yes, no,
mathematically,
totally.
like people were more one thing than another, and now
Yes,
everybody's
yeah.
mixed because everyone's been mixing, which is cool, awesome, great. Like I'm a rainbow child from every continent. Like, what am I supposed to call myself when I was probably like
That's
have
true.
relatives who are like Mayan priestesses, but then also like Viking warriors and also like Egyptian blood. And it's like, I can't just say I'm one thing when I'm all of these things, you know? So I think that's also like an added complication of like, there's so many ways you could like identify with your different cultures and genetics and DNA.
All I have is Viking and like Celtic, and that's it, basically. Scandinavian and UK. That's it. I thought my choice was hard. I'm like, do I do the Viking thing? Which, you know, they mixed with all the Celtic people anyway. So it all comes down to the same thing.
I just had such a great image of you in like the little Viking hat. Yeah.
Yes. It's the cheekbones. I got Viking cheekbones. It's a good point, Kelsey. I mean, there's almost everybody, I would say 99.999% of people listening to this are one thing, and, you know, are multiple nationalities, multiple cultures, multiple origin, you know, places of origin. So it is a question of like, what do I feel more connected with? And if it's more than one thing, I think that needs to be okay, you know?
Well, and then you start getting into things like, you know, if you believe in past lives, which
that's a whole nother layer.
Right. That's a whole other layer. And I don't know that I necessarily believe in like a linear past life where like my entire consciousness was in another body, but you know, the atoms and stuff of our cells explodes back into the universe. Of course, that's going to get reincorporated into other stuff.
Can I just say, because you said, I can't say that it's linear. I 100% agree. And I have such a silly little story about my husband, who is very in tune with like what I talk about, but he doesn't ever put it in the terms that I put it in, because he's very much black and white, like scientific and analytical, but at the same time he's like, yeah, my energy does stuff, I can manifest. Like anyway. So I was my son, my oldest 9-year-old, was saying something about past lives, because that's what we talk about in this house. And and I said something like, maybe in your next life you'll be, you know, whatever. And I was talking about the future, and my husband looks at me and goes, who's to say he's going to reincarnate in the future? And I was like, oh snap. Totally. And I was like, that's a good point. We don't that's just a little window into like how my husband, he just like drops these bombs sometimes. Kelsey,
I've had them dropped on me. They're great.
He was like, how do you know he's going to reincarnate in the future? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. He could reincarnate in the past. Like, who knows?
I was about to say, we don't know. Start like looking through history for him. That would be
like really Doctor Who.
Right.
Like Doctor Who.
Lindsay, you're such a nerd. I love it.
I'm such a geek. I know. And I couldn't be more happy about it. Okay. Anyway, so yes, exactly. And I wonder this a lot as somebody who does believe in reincarnation, and also somebody who believes in the power of epigenetics, which is the study of emotional memories and experiences that pass through the DNA. I often wonder to myself, and I really want to do more research on this on my own, which one is more powerful, or do they both have an equal kind of weaving effect into who you become? Not only are you dealing with everything from your alternate lifetimes, you know, quotes if you believe in that, but you're also like this amalgamation of everything that your ancestors have gone through to put me in this seat right now. So it's such a convoluted, and there's so many layers and there's so much stuff when you think about like where you come from.
Maybe what we call past lives is actually us tuning into our epigenetics.
I think about that all the time. Like, how do I know I'm remembering a past life and not just like my ancestors' life?
You don't know.
You don't know. Get that in harmony. We don't know. We don't know. But I think that's beautiful. Like to not know is so cool. I am
Keeps
such a
things
geek
interesting.
that I think about like, what am I going to ask? What am I going to find out first when I die? And I go back to like, when I go back home, like, what am I going to like really want to know first? Am I going to just want to know like what actually happened to Amelia Earhart? Maybe that's what I'm going to find out first. Or like, do I just want to know if past lives are real or if I'm just remembering my ancestors? Like, I agree that once our atoms kind of go where they're going, they have to, energy can't be destroyed. It just is changed. So that kind of lends me to believe that, yes, we do probably recycle ourselves in one way or another. But yeah, it's just so interesting. I don't know. I think it's so cool not to know, but it's also so frustrating also.
Yeah.
Because I'm an Aries and I got to know.
I was scrolling before I got on with you guys, and a woman that I follow had a post that started, "You are not who you think you are." And I'm like, okay, well, none of us are who we think we are, and none of us aren't who we think we are either. Like,
right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like there's this stickiness to all these questions. Mm-hmm. And I think that they can be kind of twisted around in these weird sorts of ways. You're not who you think you are. Like,
hey, listen, it got you to stop though, didn't it? And that was the point of the post.
Actually, I saw it and I was kind of disgusted, and I didn't read the rest of the post. I was like, yeah. So, but I think that it's like when someone claims to have the answers to all these questions, like I love that you're just like, we don't know, because we don't know. But when someone starts claiming to have the answers, like, I don't know, I get like the little like ding, 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 something's wrong here. Someone's trying to take advantage of you in some way, shape, or form.
It's hard to trust someone who says that there's nothing more to learn. And, I don't think those words will ever utter my lips. I am so happy to learn new things, and I'm learning all the time. And I think that can only be a benefit to myself and everyone around me by learning. If you say you know it all, like nobody, you're done. You're just done. You're done learning. Like it just makes sense to me.
Sometimes I like to give like a preface, like when people interview me and stuff, and they'd be like, well, what do you think about this? And I'll be like, well, today, I think from what I know where I'm at today in this moment in time, I feel like this is probably it. But also like tomorrow I might change my mind. So don't hold me to that. But that's how I'm thinking about it today. This is my perspective right now in this moment. But I'm going to leave it open because I don't want to put myself in a box, and I don't want you to put me in a box.
Totally.
See, and that's back to the word thing. Like once we choose a label, we've really put ourselves in a box. And then the box evolves, and you're like sitting in the middle of it going like, whoa, the box is evolving around me. But I think that like more than that, like more than the personal discomfort, like I don't fit in my box anymore because we can all step out of our boxes. I think that sometimes we get to this place where the box becomes exclusive or exclusionary, and then people miss out on learnings or teachings that might really, really help them if they didn't feel excluded from that box.
Yeah, I think the benefit of the labels, and one of the reasons why we try to do it and we want to do it, is for like the purpose of ultimately like connecting. Like, oh, if I'm a witch and you're a witch, then we have this thing in common and we can connect and understand each other and like get the vibe, like how you were explaining earlier. So I can understand why we want to do it and have like that need of like belonging, and I want to be in a group and I want to be a part of something. And at the same time, like you can do that if it feels good, or you can just not do that and be everything that you are. And you can also do them both simultaneously. Like this doesn't have to be like if or like this versus that world. Like if we're embracing and consciousness, you can be defining yourself as this and also as everything else, as simply yourself.
Yeah. I see a lot of clients who really want to know what their purpose is. Let me drop into my higher essence, my soul wisdom, and find out why I'm on this planet. That's awesome. One of the biggest blockages to doing that for them on their own, without even my help, is the fact that they feel like they have to find the perfect thing, the one thing that is the answer. And one of the first things I'll say to people is, you're allowed to change your mind. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself to know the one thing that's gonna that you're going to attach yourself as that label. And that's it. Like the end, I'm happy, I'm fulfilled. Like I am doing what I know I'm supposed to do on this earth. However, I also know that I want to have more. I want to be a genealogist. I'm getting certified. I've decided it. I want to be a genealogist. I'm obsessed with ancestry and all of that stuff. And I feel like if we gave ourselves the ability to evolve, if we gave ourselves permission to know that, yes, I identify as this right now, but I know that that could change based on what I learn and what feels best for me in the future. Like that's what life is. You know, you have to dance with it instead of just stamping it down and being like, yep, that's me forever, even if I'm uncomfortable, which is where most people get eventually. You can expand. You can do that. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be one thing. It's probably not going to work that way.
But I think that like pulling that in really shows us something important, which is your life purpose is not a job title.
No,
it's your life purpose is bigger and broader than that. So like if your life purpose is to help other humans, there are 57 million different ways you can do that. There are so many things that fall under that umbrella.
And probably a few thousand of them will really light you up inside.
Yep. So, but I think that what happens is people want to find their life purpose when what they really want to find is their career. Like I think we confuse all these different things. Like if you want to find your life purpose, that might not make you any money at all. It might have nothing to do with like what degrees you have or anything else. Like a life purpose is different than a career choice or where am I going to live or who am I going to marry or, you know, am I going to
a life purpose is a feeling.
Yeah,
for sure. It's that like locked in, I am exactly who I came here to be. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And most of the time, you know, in my experience, most of the time with my clients, it's I want to help people. I'm like, okay.
I feel like we all have like different variations of like the same purposes.
Yes, I agree.
In a way, like different.
I don't think any soul comes here to just take and take. Like, yep, this is what I'm doing. Like, I feel like we all kind of come here with the intention to add something to the planet, you know,
even
whatever that might be for the greater good, even if it doesn't look good on the surface, you know. I'm gonna talk about Hitler again. Okay, Kelsey, get ready.
Here she goes.
Here I go. Do I believe that Hitler came here and fulfilled his purpose? Yes. But do I believe that it was horrible and sucked? Absolutely, it did. But, you know, it can look so different. And I'm not saying like go and kill a bunch of people or be horrible. I'm just saying everybody has a purpose. And eventually, one way or another, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. Don't come at me.
Okay, I agree with you that everybody has a purpose, but I don't agree that all the purposes are to help other people or that are like
no.
I don't believe I don't believe that they're all
let me clarify.
Benign.
To add something to the greater purpose of humanity. That is my statement. Period. Now what they're adding,
like,
yeah.
Is it to add something or is it to shift history or the course of, you know what I mean? Like when like,
well, yeah, I think that we're kind of saying the same thing, to add their ingredients to the pot of consciousness on the planet. So yes, exactly. To shift, to do something to move it forward in whatever way they choose to do that before they come here.
This is fun. I like talking about these things.
I do too. I absolutely do.
Life. Like, oh, why are we here? What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to call myself today?
Oh, so existential today, aren't we?
I'm like always like this. So I'm an air sign. Maybe I'm in my head a lot of.
I was about to say I'm always like everything. This
too. So Maia,
existential angst.
What are you like in terms of zodiac? What's your sign?
I am sun sign Gemini, moon in Taurus, Capricorn rising.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm like, I don't know what my moon is. I don't remember, but I know I'm Sag rising. So I'm like a lot of fire.
You know,
Sorry, Abel. My husband's a Virgo. So I'm here and he's here on the wheel thing. And every astrologer is like, you guys probably shouldn't be married. I'm like, whatever. We're happy. I don't care.
We're good.
Oh, well. We're like the most independent signs, I guess. which is true.
You know, that moon piece though is really good to know.
I know, and I did know it. I just can't remember.
So like the way I look at it is like your sun is kind of like your yang and your moon is like your yin. And so I just found for myself, and like maybe this is not true for other people, but for me, when I found out what my moon sign was, I was like, oh, that like explains so much about the Gemini stuff that just didn't resonate. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, I've got this Gemini sun, but I have a Taurus moon that balances it out, and that changes things.
I think I'm also a Sag moon. I think. I know it's fire. Whatever it is, I know it's a fire sign. I don't think I get to like anything not being fire for a while down the charting. Like fire, 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 fire. Oh, also earth and other stuff too.
I feel like this ties in perfectly to like the labels, because you can literally use anything like your human design, your Enneagram number, your horoscope to either like help make you feel more excited about who you are, or to feel like, oh, F it, I'm freaking cursed. I'm only going to be able to express myself in these defined ways. I can never do this. I can never do that. I'm so limited by my type, you know? So I feel like it could go either way. I think this ties in like perfectly to everything.
I just found out it's Pisces, which is not fire. I thought it was.
Not fire.
No, it's the opposite.
It's not fire, but isn't it interesting? Because obviously like you define yourself by fire. And so you like, that's where you went.
Just who I am, man. Ever since I was a kid. And when I found out I was an Aries, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, God of War. Yes. It's my favorite video game.
Yes.
It's like one of my favorite video games also. So it just all works out.
And Maya, you'll get a kick out of mine. So my sun sign is Aquarius, and then my moon and my rising are both Cancer. And I have a bunch of Cancer in my chart.
Wait, I thought you were Sag rising like me.
No, that was a mistake. It's Cancer.
We're not Sagittarius buddies anymore.
No, but I love Sagittarius people, so we're still buddies. It's okay. I'll still be your friend.
We can't label ourselves that way anymore. Interesting.
But yeah, because people are always like, oh, Aquarians are so non-emotional. They're so this, they're so that. And I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty sensitive. And then once I figured out that I had so much Cancer in my chart, I was like, oh, I get it now.
See, but I think that's it. Like, it's kind of like, you don't want to just live into the label, but when you can unpack the suitcase of the label and be like, oh, okay, now I understand myself better. Right. I think that's really what it's about. It's not about the label itself. It's about that moment where you go, oh, okay, I get myself a bit better now.
Yeah. Or who here has read their horoscope to their partner and been like, see? He does that to me too.
I like to study everyone's horoscopes in my life. Like if I ever find a personality test or something that I want to take, I make everyone around me take it so I can like learn about them too and see like how we jive, and so I can understand them better. And I'm always like diving into the little things, and I'm like, Jeff, you see, this makes so much sense. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing Andrew's big eye roll.
Insert giant eye roll here.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's funny. Well, I want to ask you, since we're among a fellow magical human, what are some of like the fun practices or ways you've been connecting with yourself or nature or your guidance lately? Hey there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibe in It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.